Good afternoon, folks. I'm Dustin Siggins here with Lindsay and Brandon, and we're going to talk about how communicators in 2025 really need to come out of the shadow and really promote ourselves in addition to promoting our clients, our bosses, our colleagues. And this is round two. We all did this back in March. Lindsay and I were at a little bit different stages and where we wanted to be on LinkedIn. So this is going to be a non-violent, non-boxing round two of how communications professionals can come out of the shadows in 2025. So Lindsay and Brandon, if you want to introduce yourselves real quick.
Sure, I can go first. I'm Lindsay Wilson. In the last few months, have spun up my own consulting practice, kind of going back to my roots of agency life, and have been doing that since the last we spoke. And it's July, so I have a little bit more of a tan than the last time we were all together. So that's nicer to see.
Awesome. Yeah. So same old for me. So Brandon Watts, director of PR and comms at Storyblok, still wrestling with LinkedIn, having fun, recycling a lot of posts. If you've been following me for a while, I've been going to some of the greatest hits, and that's been paying off. But yeah, still having fun with it and learned a lot in the past few months. So happy to talk about it.
Well, let's go back to the basics. We got together back in March because it seems like a lot of communications professionals struggle with promoting ourselves. And at the time, Brandon, you had said a couple of years ago, or I think it was until 2 years ago, you thought that communicators should not be online, like not promoting themselves. And now you wouldn't hire somebody who doesn't have an active LinkedIn profile. Lindsay, I think you were away for a few years and you came back. It was a whole new world. It was no longer just a billboard for your resume. It was an active social media community. For myself, I was brand new. I didn't know anything. So I was still learning, anything I could. So let's talk about where things stood for each of you in March and where things stand now. For myself, this actually being on with you all was one of the first LinkedIn Live episodes that I've done. So I'm not talking about AI like Brandon or Lizzie Harris or some other people. I'm not an in-house expert like Stephanie Roberts and Katerina. What I try to do is have a show. I interview people for my op-eds, and then they get into press for free, and we all get social proof, etc. For me, I think those have become the two primary ways that I try to stand out on the platform, is by creating that conversation, bringing people into my world more in a very active way. And then also I try to be a bit counterintuitive. I look at the PR professional and say, instead of complaining that we're not respected by the C-suite, how do we become respected? Instead of blaming the client, how do we blame ourselves? Or look in the mirror, so to speak. And so I think those are the three ways that I've been really able to try to stand out on the platform, even as the algorithm has killed everybody, is those things create the relationships regardless of how well my posts do.
Yeah, I can go next. I think so. When we first had this conversation, I was starting to figure out how important building a personal brand on LinkedIn was, for my job search. I had left my in-house um, corporate communications position in November, was trying to figure out what was next, and I think I had made the grave mistake of applying to my first few jobs without an updated LinkedIn. And to Brandon's point, probably why I wasn't hired. But I quickly, pivoted and changed course, and I think I'm in a much better place now. But it has been interesting. So my focus, um, in addition to figuring out what I'm going to do when I grow up, is to build relationships. And that has actually been where I've seen the most success. Through posts, I would say I'm not as consistent with them. But comments, I think I mentioned that the last time we spoke, that was where I was sort of starting. But I've actually found that engaging in conversations in the comments have actually created these relationships. And then sort of constant DMs, relationship building opportunities, and gotten very good feedback from recruiters I've been working with saying, your tone is great, you're presenting yourself in the right way.
Oh,
So I feel
wonderful.
like I've learned a lot from watching you both too, as well as some other people. But that conversation definitely made me more accountable to the commitments that I was making and knowing that the power that it had. But I'm 4 months later, have created really meaningful relationships, including the two of you. So that's also been a real bonus. So that's kind of where I've been focusing my energy on LinkedIn and making sure that when I'm commenting, it is representing who I am and how I want to be seen.
That's awesome. Let's start with the bad part. I'm happy to do that. So what I learned from you a few months ago, both of you, that I'm still trying to work on is engagement, right? So I'm still not where I want to be with commenting. And part of it may be because I do have different priorities slightly. Like I'm not looking for a job or work. I'm not looking for clients and things like Dustin, you are. So it is a different slant. I think if I was in either of your shoes, I'd be doing the exact same thing you're doing because I see the value in it. And I know that's where you build a lot of the relationships.
Yep.
And I want to get there. What I've done good at is just posting every day and engaging with everyone who interacts with me. And that has been honestly, I feel 90% satisfied with where I'm at. It's that last 10% that I want to get at, which is really buying out the time to engage with other people in a meaningful way outside of my content. And I joked about it at the beginning, but I have been recycling a lot of content. So just like you two, we go in phases of being busy. I'm busy right now. I have like 200. I looked at my list. I think I have like 273 different ideas for posts I want to write, which is great. And some of them are like bangers. Like I'm like, I got to get to those, like my top 5 that I haven't written yet. But it's like the day starts and I'm like, oh man, don't have time today. Let's go 7 months ago, repost. And that's been okay. Like I'm being more okay with recycling content. I'm glad there's so much out there. It is hitting different people. It's fun to watch the numbers evolve over time. Some hit better, some hit worse. But that's where I'm at. So I've kept that up of posting every day. Growth is a lot slower than it was algorithm wise and beyond. I mean, I think I had some mega viral posts that went like the first quarter and then I haven't really had that since then. So I think, maybe 200, 300 reactions is the max I've hit, which is still great, but you don't see that translating into follower growth. So I'm being okay with that. My original goal was I wanted to be 5,000 by July 1st and 10,000 by the end of the year. I'm like 18 away from 5,000, which I still think is pretty good. But that growth is going to be a lot slower over time. So I'm just having fun sharing thoughts and learning from others. And man, the conversations on AI that folks are having about PR has been fascinating. People like Sarah Evans and the collab people, like, oh man, they're just doing some incredible stuff. So I'm learning a lot and I'm having a good time. So that's where I'm at now.
The thing that I've been observing is it is the question of, is LinkedIn, the algorithm keeps changing, right? So they changed it last summer, but it was okay. Kind of, once you figured out the thing. In December, they changed it again, and very few people seem to have recovered from that. But one of the things that I started noticing, I thought it was me, because we're actually hiring 2 people at the end of the month, so I've been making up the slack. Okay, there isn't any slack. What's the opposite of slack? I've been filling in the gaps on our services. So I haven't been engaging as much pre and post, posts, if you will. That the 15 or so comments you're supposed to make to gin up the algorithm. I've been a little slacking on that, and I've had a few people say, "Hey, I haven't talked to you in a while. Oh, where have you been?" Not that I'm gone, but I'm not as as you put it, Lindsay, back in March. I was everywhere. I don't think I'm quite everywhere anymore in terms of my comments and how I'm engaging with people. But I also think that part of that, Sarah Kisco Hirsch posted just 2 days ago. She hasn't seen people in a while. I think this is becoming a common problem. And a lot of people are focusing on that. And I started to, and I realized though, if you're worried about your post not showing up, then you have to do what Lindsay and I are doing, which is DMing people. There are people on my show or I interview for op-eds. They've never met me outside of a couple of DMs until I say, "Hey, do you want to be on the show, or do you want to be interviewed for an op-ed?" And that creates the relationship. And because I have a business, I want sales. This is a way to have a soft intro that's still a value add versus a generic DM where we're struggling to find an angle of getting along, so to speak, and building the relationship. So let's talk a little bit about the algorithm and how we've kind of gotten past it. Because for my company, we have generated at least a 6x return on our investment into LinkedIn over since December. We started investing really in May of last year. Since December, we've had at least one new client every month. Sometimes a small project, but one new client every month consistently. And I think that's going to continue, even though I'm backing off a little bit on some of the marketing side, because we have to just serve our clients. Because if you spend less energy, I think, on the post and pour more energy into the other things, I think you have a higher ROI right now. And I'll close this with the analogy of when you are lifting weights, when you're a 20 something and I used to think, oh, it's all about the deadlift and the snatches, and don't ever do a snatch, but all these big exercises. But really, you have to lift weights to build muscle. But most of it is rest, sleep, nutrition, and hydration. And that's 80% of it. So like with LinkedIn, I think you have to post, but it's what you do around that that's really going to drive the value, especially given the way the algorithm is going. Anyway, I'll get off my very small, my sandbox here.
Yeah,
That's a good analogy.
Yeah, it is. It is. And that's where I'm struggling. So I'm not doing that warm up that I'm tending to respond to posts that are comments on my posts before I post something to try to at least get something going. But
Sure.
yeah, it's a matter of prioritizing that activity. And it's not out of a lack of interest. Like I see stuff like I just mentioned that this is amazing content. And it's just like keep scrolling. It's like, you know what? That's not the right way to be. I need to be better about it. So again, I was not accountable. I should have been better these 4 months later. Maybe the next time I will hope to be better, at least marginally better. But yeah, the algorithm. So again, I'm not doing this for business purposes. I'm doing it for learning. And as someone who leads a social team, we have a great social media manager who runs our accounts and such. But since it's part of my team, I just want to be hands-on with knowing what style works, what's happening in the space. And so I use it more as an educational thing. So I'm not losing sleep over my post getting 100 views sometimes. It doesn't really affect me. The ego bump maybe a little bit, but we all know what that's like. And we've seen the biggest names in the biz complain about getting 300 views on something that normally got 4,000 or whatever. So it's fine. It's fun to make fun of it. And I like the inside joke about the algorithm. And that's kind of where I'm at with it. Like even when I promoted this, I just joked about the algorithm because everyone gets, everyone's
no one thought we were going to talk about the algorithm today.
Everyone's hair stands up when they're talking about the algorithm. But it's like, please, LinkedIn, I want to pay you money to reach everyone that follows me. Can we get to that point? Like that I still don't understand that, but that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I am similar. I really don't pay any attention to it. I have tried to use and leverage LinkedIn as authentically as possible. And I feel like if I'm paying attention to the algorithm too much, then it becomes inauthentic. And then I'm trying to game the system. And I don't think twice about it. Yeah, there are certain times when I post things and it reaches like 16 people, and I'm thinking, there's no way I could only reach 16 people. And on the flip side, I get frustrated when I log into LinkedIn and I see posts from 2 weeks ago, and I'm thinking, oh, this is really interesting. I was like, oh, I already commented on this, right? And that's why it's like popping up on my
all the time.
Right. And I'm just like, that's not good. So that part frustrates me, but I really don't. Maybe I should, but I also I just don't think about it too much. I try to be as authentic as possible on LinkedIn, and that's sort of my separation there.
Well, and two, to your point, Brent, about, is it a vanity metric, right? So at the end of the day, if we continue to grow the way we are as a company, we're going to have probably 50% growth off of last year, almost all of it through LinkedIn. At the end of the day, when I first started doing this over a year ago, more impressions was good. Then it became more engagement. Then it became engagement inside the industry. And then we added other tactics, connect with more people, DM them, other tactics surrounding that. But at the end of the day, I'm trying to drive sales. So, I'll actually share. I don't really care if people see how pathetic my numbers are right now.
Breaking news, everyone.
But
share the revenue chart.
Is this material non-public information?
Sorry, not those numbers. I meant the LinkedIn numbers. So But like, because people are complaining about this, and if you're saying it, Lindsay and Brandon, maybe others are like, "Oh man, they must be doing better than me." But like, this is what we're talking about right now. 371 impressions, including what I got yesterday when I posted.
Yeah.
This is today as 152 impressions. 9
Yeah.
engagements, which is supposed to drive the impressions up. This one has, more substantial. But then last week we popped before the holiday. I don't know. I guess I had over 3,300 impressions and 40 quality engagements. So it really is just running the gamut here, and
Hmm.
none of us can control it. So I'm sorry, I'm not going to share my financials with the world, but I will share my LinkedIn.
I was ready for that.
I know, right?
I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Well, and that was the continuation. That's what it sounded like too. I need to be more reticent like yourself, Brennan. I so the reason I bring all that up is I'm trying to drive sales. Brennan, what was it you posted that you're going to speak on an AI panel soon?
Yeah, so this is what is fun for me on LinkedIn. It's just I have no agenda really other than sharing what's real and what's entertaining to me. And people respond to that because what I've learned the most, and I tell people this all the time when I speak about LinkedIn and what I'm doing, is like the fastest way to lose engagement is to talk about what you do. The quickest
Right.
way to boost it is to write about how you think about what you do. And it's so
Yes.
true. Like anytime I post something related to the work I do at my company, 2 likes, hopefully, maybe. It doesn't matter if it's a great press hit, a campaign I worked 9 months on. It's like
Right.
not even the company will engage with it. It's like, yeah. And then you post some unhinged meme, and it's like everyone in the world sees it. It feels like so. That's been a learning experience. But yes, there have been opportunities since we last spoke. I've been talking about AI and PR a lot. It's
Yes,
fascinating
you
to
have.
me, and I'm playing around with it. So I got invited to do a meltwater webinar, which was a lot of fun. Came out of
That's right. I
nowhere.
forgot about that. Yep.
And then the meltwater webinar led someone in San Francisco to see that someone in San Francisco saw it and is like, hey, we're organizing this event. It's still not announced, but it's just kind of a small PRSA thing that's happening. But like, you want to speak about AI to the group? And I'm like, not only do I want to, I'll fly out there and do it.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's the nice thing about being with the company too. There's like learning and development, and like you have budget to do certain things like this. So it's like, yeah, let's do that. And that came completely from LinkedIn. So one thing built to another. And
Right.
I'm not even 5% of what some of these folks talking about AI and PR are, but I'm learning it, I'm playing around with it, and I think that's relatable. I don't come at it from an expert standpoint. I come at it from a, hey, I'm figuring this out as you are. And I think that is helping me kind of connect with people. Again, because there's no agenda. It's literally, this is cool to me and this is stupid. And I'll just tell you. And that's all there is to it. Yeah.
No, and Lindsay, you talk about relationships. I know you've built your
Hmm.
consulting practice now in the last 4
Yeah.
months.
Yeah.
I'm trying to drive sales through LinkedIn, and it's working, even if the LinkedIn numbers are down. Brandon, you're having fun, and it's led you to be on a couple of panels talking about something you find interesting. Lindsay, even again, we're talking here about creating success despite the algorithm.
Hmm.
How are you not what's allowing you to focus on that, North Star instead of the algorithm numbers?
Yeah. Well, I think, if I take a step back, the point of me being on LinkedIn for myself is to create a an authority, right? I have all this experience. I want to share what I've learned. I want to help people see around corners that maybe they're not thinking about, right? So some of those things. And I think that's just where I'm focused. I'm focused
Mhm.
on my experience. If I think about, oh, is this, this post going to get this many impressions? I
Mhm.
think I could probably be a bit more humorous or um not snarky in a negative way, but I probably could let a little bit more of my personality through. I haven't gotten there yet because
Mhm.
I don't want to be too much one way because I am trying to still figure out, like I said, what I'm going to do when I grow up.
Right.
And so I feel like I haven't gone as, gone too far in sort of the funny memes. Maybe one or two, but not to that extent. And so I'm still a little conservative in what I'm posting. So from that perspective, yeah, I probably do think about it from an algorithm perspective, but I'm not thinking what's going to be the most viral. I think about what feels
Right.
right for me or authentic and where I feel like I have something to say. And similar to comments, right? I don't, there are probably things where I see discussions and I really just focus on what I thought. And Brandon, you actually made a post which still sticks with me about media relations, and have you really, as leaders, have you done any pitching recently? And actually one of my clients is, I'm doing hands-on media relation pitching in the trenches.
Mhm.
And so I came back to your post and I said, look, I'm doing this, and
Amazing.
it's been awesome, right? It's humbling in a
Mhm.
way, but it's also been really illuminating too. But I wasn't thinking twice about how many people would see that. But because of this network that I've built, people are seeing it, and it creates more conversations offline than it probably would have if I just posted it separately about it on my own, if that makes sense. So I'm, I wouldn't say taking advantage, but I am looking at people who I've connected with who have a good following, and your impressions are probably higher. And so I am thinking about that, but I'm also just, it's a really interesting topic, and it got me to think about things. So it was sort of a win-win.
But you're also, that's, similar to PR, right? In PR, you don't go for this outlet because of the vanity metric. It has to drive an outcome.
Yeah, it's
But
a
you
long game.
do strategically look at
Yeah.
where are you getting, you don't just go for the little blog and you can get 2 tiers
No,
high. And
exactly.
so
It's strategic. I mean,
it's
it's
authentic,
a
but
long
it's
game.
strategic.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
One thing I noticed actually. So Lindsay, the three of us, we all posted about this, right? This
Hmm.
event we're having right now.
Yes.
And, I think out of the three of us, I had the least engagement. I don't take it personally. I think I got like 3 reactions or something like that. Dustin, I
Hang
don't know
on.
what you
Five.
had.
Five,
Five.
you have five
But then
reactions.
Lindsay posted
Right.
today,
Right.
and
Crushed
my
it.
phone's blowing up.
Sorry, guys.
My phone's blowing up. I think what are you at now? Like you're approaching 20 or something, and that was just like
I
a
don't
few
know.
hours ago. No, but I
Right.
bring it up for a good
Right.
reason,
I
which
posted it
is
yesterday. I've commented
yes,
a few times. I've done all the algorithm friendly things.
Hmm.
yes.
Yes.
But the point I'm making is I think because people have followed your journey, and
Yes.
this what we're doing right now is attached to that journey.
Yes.
Yep.
Like your audience is warmed up, and like when as soon as they saw you post
Mhm.
about it, they're like, we're engaging because we
Yeah.
know this is what she's working on and can't wait to hear
Right.
about it, which shows
Right.
it's working, right? and
Yeah.
and to Dustin's point, I mean, I'm becoming obsessed with abandoning top tier media and tier one and not caring at all. And it's like,
Hmm.
I want to go to the newsletter with 73 subscribers, right? I mean, that's the type of content I've been posting lately, is like, I really don't care to talk about CNBC and Bloomberg. I don't know why we ever did, honestly, with startups and scale ups. It's like when
Yes.
you're gonna get there, like when that
Yep.
story is getting picked up, but most
Yes.
of the time it's not. And it's like I'm just all about the podcast with 200 subscribers and the newsletter that's just getting started. And like, so that's why I think, to all three of our points about impression numbers, that's why I think it's okay. Maybe you get 73 impressions, but like in your case, Lindsay, they're
Yeah.
all people that are in a part of your story and engaged as soon as they
Yeah.
saw you post this. So I think that proves the point.
Yeah. Authentic relationships. And looking at that, it was kind of funny. I saw that. I didn't look at your as well, so I wasn't comparing notes, but I was like, oh, it's so nice. Like 20
Yeah.
people liked that. And I was like, but I looked at them and they're all very authentic relationships. Some of them built here, some of them long-standing relationships, of course. But I think it is putting myself out there has created and it's actually reconnected with people in my network who, maybe I worked with 15 years ago, maybe I went to college with, and it's been really nice to know that people are in your corner, because the social media world can feel very one dimensional, right? It feels like I'm putting myself out there. Dustin, you put yourself out there. Brandon, you put yourself out there. And when you're focused on the vanity metrics, it doesn't feel great that you're not getting
Right.
those responses. But I look at, who 20 people, great. I mean, and those are all 20 meaningful people to me who I know, are tuning in and are supportive. And like I said, some of those came actually out of our last conversation. So it's been
Yeah.
great.
I definitely think that having little kids makes me a little more anxious about getting the numbers because I do want to drive a certain line of sales.
Sure.
And I'm trying to get away from that. Last
Sure.
December, actually, my colleague Jalissa and a consultant, Molly, who we had hired for LinkedIn specifically, I've talked about Molly many times. Um, it was December. My numbers were just diving. And I was really concerned. I didn't know the algorithm had changed. But I started so I started just engaging with people to try to, boost the numbers a little bit and add new people. And I actually hurt myself because basically the PR people took the month off. And the only people who were left were the influencers. And most of the people, PR is a relatively small world compared to the wider comm. So there's a lot of social media people and digital marketing people and newsletter people and brand builder. I actually hurt myself in January on the algorithm because I engaged with the wrong people.
Mhm.
And so when all of the sort of average people like me came back onto the platform in January, the first 2 weeks of January were bad too. And actually, that was the point at which I told my colleague Jalissa, you are now in charge of telling me what to do on LinkedIn. Because I was clearly too focused on not vanity metrics, but metrics that were not
Yeah.
as relevant as I thought. And that, do kind of boost the emotional energy sometimes. And
Mhm.
so we've actually made a real distinct practice within the company, because LinkedIn, again, is our lead generation platform, is are we driving sales? What is tending to drive sales? What is bringing quality people more into our network and focusing less on those bottom end numbers?
Well,
We're all
I
subject to the dopamine hit, right?
Oh gosh.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I continue to be impressed by you, Dustin, for bringing us back together to do this, for all the
Mhm.
stuff I see you on the thought leadership and doing LinkedIn Lives. Like, it is incredible the energy at which you do this, and it is inspirational. Like, no, I think since we've done this 4 months ago, it feels like a lot more. And I'll take credit for the three of us. Apparently everyone saw it in the world, but it feels like the PR and comms folks, like all of a sudden everyone's out there. And I don't know if it's like the AI
I think
topics
so.
is like, wow, I got to make my own human, version of myself out there, or I don't want to be, washed away with the AI wave or whatever. But it just does feel like everyone is doing it. When I go to my LinkedIn now, I used to see a whole mix of folks, and now it is tuned straight to comms folks, and that's
Mhm.
all I see for the most
Yep.
part. And it's the algorithm's doing me well there. Like, I'm seeing exactly who I want to see.
Yep.
And when I do toss some engagement with someone, I continue to see them for a few weeks, and it's great.
Yep.
But yeah, it just feels like everyone is on board with this now. Like, I think this is a good follow-up, because I love seeing these sub like 1,000 accounts, like, 600 reaching out, connecting with me, that just got active on the platform. It's like, man, people are really seeing that this is it. And it's
Yeah.
cool. It's cool to be, for like the three of us to be having done it for quite a bit of time now. It's nice to not just be at the starting point.
It's super nice. And one of my challenges was when I was that new person, I had 3,300 connections, most of whom were not in the comm space. So right now I think I have 5,500, but I've also gotten rid of a whole bunch that were irrelevant. So not to try to have my impressions more in the comm space.
Mm.
And the what's been really interesting is I think the fact that 2025 has been a better year than last year for the comms industry, but it's still tariffs have really impacted hiring. And I think a lot of people are looking at LinkedIn as two things. I've met a lot of people who have started companies in lieu of having a job. So they're just on LinkedIn, just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. So they're trying to generate sales, at least in the short term. And maybe they create a company or maybe they get a job. But second is they've recognized that the new norm is I can't just put out my resume anymore. I have to be on the platform. And I think that a lot of people didn't expect 2024 to be so hard. So I do think that this year people are realizing, gee, I've been out of work for 6, 8, 10 months. I clearly have to be more, I don't know, aggressive is the right word, but more present and have a bigger presence.
I think that's really, you hit the nail on the head there, because when I talk to people, and I have lots of networking calls with folks, and I talk a lot about my own LinkedIn journey, it was a shock to me to be in this space and not really know how to navigate it, when I felt like I had known how to navigate it. I mean, I ran social media for companies. I kind of know how to navigate the platform, but individually, right? I
Sure.
shared a lot of the projects I had worked on to we talked about earlier. It was sort of my, here are my shining star moments on my resume. That was sort of what my LinkedIn looked like. And I think that the last year and a half, especially in comms, has shown that it's always important to keep your network warm,
Yep.
right? And LinkedIn is a
Yep.
great way to do that. And I
Yep.
think just continuing to put yourself out there and making sure you're connecting with people, not in a I need this from you, but hey, we haven't chatted in a long time. Would love to hear what you're up to. Um, is invaluable in these sort of uncertain times. And that to me has been a
Mhm.
huge lesson that I've learned,
Yep.
probably taken for granted. But I am passing that along. And I feel like that's been something that I tried to really reiterate over and over again, that LinkedIn gives you the platform to do that. You don't have to do this on your own, right? LinkedIn provides
Mhm.
the platform to do that. So I think having gone still on this journey, right? And still, but
Mhm.
I think trying different things and sort of seeing what works has been really important. But like I said, my hope right now is that like we're talking to people, and to Brandon's point, people are doing it. I think people are getting it and seeing what others are doing, and sort of responding in kind. But when I talk to people, coffee, Zooms, whatever, that kind of is the key takeaway that I say to people as this is it's there for the taking. I mean, this is the purpose of it. And people use it in different ways, and this is how it's worked for me.
So two things. First is I'm going to ask you both a question, and then I broke the light that I was using to actually make me not look like I'm Emperor Palpatine over here or Baltimore. So apparently a cloud went in front of the sun. So I'm going to go pop my windows. But I
That's
want
fine.
to get you both reacting to something. One of the things that I've developed in the last 4 months is more use of company stories in the content. So I
Hmm.
think two things we should tackle over the next 10 to 15 minutes. One is the difference between authenticity and vulnerability.
Hmm.
And also, a lot of people, back when I was looking for a job, oh, Dustin, I don't want to brag about myself on a resume, or I didn't want to brag about
Hmm.
myself. Well, what's the difference between bragging about yourself and stating an accomplishment?
Hmm.
So I was very concerned when I started citing client stories in my LinkedIn content on a somewhat regular basis was, am I going to come across as self-centered or self-interested? And so let's talk about that for a few minutes, because I think a lot of people are nervous about putting their past successes on the platform for fear of looking self-centered. And my takeaway is, as long as you attach a lesson to it, it
Hmm.
doesn't matter. Again, I'm going to go pop the windows.
Okay.
Brandon, you want to take this
Yeah,
one? Start
that's
us
fine.
off.
That's fine. No, honestly, I struggle with this one a little bit because I've seen time and time again that your self-promotion and even bragging when you're not bragging, it comes across as like, hey, look at me, I got this hit, or hey, look at me, I got this promotion, or whatever the case is. It tanks your engagement and it kind of makes me feel icky.
Hmm.
Um, but to Dustin's point, I mean, there is a way to do it, to talk about the story behind how this happened, why it happened, how I felt when it happened. I'm not great at that, I'll be honest with you. It's the typical thing of PR people kind of not wanting to promote themselves. Like that's I still am that way. And I think if I was actively looking for work or clients, I would have to find a way to navigate around that. But the way I feel about it for my company Storyblok is, when you go to my profile, my header image, Storyblok, my photo, the link, the title, like who I am, who I work for. And when I look at my profile views, getting lots and lots of profile views, I know people are connecting me to the company and how I think
Hmm.
with the company. And to me, that's how I'm promoting the company, is through showing that I'm producing engaging content that people get behind. They click through my profile, they see me, and they connect me with Storyblok. So I haven't been as much promotional on Storyblok itself because of those reasons, because you do have to navigate that a little bit. But yeah, I mean, my takeaway, Dustin, is the same thing. Is just when I do it, I try to highlight something that's not traditional, unexpected, something that something more, the emotion behind something and how it came together. But I probably have a lot to learn from both of you on this, because you're more actively thinking, how do I get my successes, my personal successes, out there on LinkedIn in an authentic way? So I don't know, I'd love to hear what you both have learned from that, because I'm in a different spot, I guess.
Yeah, I would say I am probably in a similar boat. I'm not great about touting successes. I think what I was saying earlier, my LinkedIn presence was very much sort of like successes that I would have posted on my resume, launched an intranet, did a brand refresh, those types of things, sort of larger pieces. I do think that there's a fine line between bragging and promotion. And I think it does give us as communications, I would say marketing sort of
Mhm.
globally a bad name because I think that just comes with the territory, like promotion, marketing, it is what we
Yep.
do. Um, I don't know for me, it's probably not authentic for me to talk about a win and sort of use a story. So if I'm talking about something that happened, my role in it probably I bury the lead. If that's the lead, I'm burying it. And the point being the story and the lesson, Dustin, to your point, the story and the takeaway and what somebody can learn from it, or it would help see around corners, help somebody think about something a little bit differently. But my role in it is is sort of the and I'm okay with that. I think it's implied because you're sharing it on your LinkedIn. So I don't think I need to be you know, hitting people over the head with this is what I did and then get into it. I think just by kind of putting yourself out there with this story, you're sort of doing that and implying that you played a pivotal role in that, that experience. So that's been my approach to things. In comments especially,
Mhm.
sometimes I don't want to seem like I'm like, well, I did this and I saw this that nobody else saw, or whatever
Right.
the comment is. My role still sort of plays a backseat, and I think it's implied my role in this. And my resume, that was a harder thing. But it's just a different vehicle. I don't look at LinkedIn. Well, I was going to say I don't look at LinkedIn as my resume, but I actually think it's a major mechanism for showing a hiring manager or a potential client who you are and what you stand for, and to give them a little sense of who you are as a person and as a communicator. So probably still more to learn there, but that's from my perspective how I'm most authentic to that sharing part of it.
I think that makes a lot of sense. A couple of times I've shared like links, pieces I've done. I don't think I've ever really cited client work in comments.
Hmm.
Of the 4 or 5 times I've linked, one person actually deleted it. The original poster actually deleted
Mm,
my comment because they felt
mm,
that was self-promotional.
yeah.
Um, but what I find interesting is in comments, gets that I really wish the sun would come back out. Is interesting in the comments is if you ask a question, like I find myself, if I find I disagree with somebody, I won't say I disagree. I'll say, oh, that's a good point. How do you handle this challenge?
Hmm.
Or one time someone had the, 4 steps to media coverage. And I said, well, we add a fifth to that. What do you think? Number 5 is this. And they said, yep, that's a great point. I would add that too. I think if you do that kind of stuff, it comes across as authentic, but also it shows that you're adding value to the conversation. You don't have to say, oh, I've worked in media coverage, or PR. The
Hmm.
question shows that. And by asking the question or adding that fifth step, you're showing that strategic and tactical sense as well.
That's the way
Definitely.
that's the way I like to do it. Even in my posts, is that's kind of how I handle it too. Is your expertise shines a light on your results without even saying you have these results, right? It's like this guy definitely has results, or this woman definitely has results.
Yep.
One example of me doing that recently, and it again, it didn't get a lot of engagement, but I was proud of the way I did it. Was playing around with AI, of course, and for Storyblok, we launched a new brand in January, and this
Mhm.
idea of joyful and headless, which is the technology we
Mm,
play in. So
yeah.
joyful
Wait,
headless. So I went across
joyfully
all
headless?
exactly.
Okay, all right. Just want to make sure I understood the words correctly. Okay.
Joyful headless, yes.
Okay.
If you're in
All
the
right.
space, you'll know it. You'll be very happy
Okay.
to hear it. But I
I'm
went across
clearly
all the
learning.
LLMs and searched what is joyful headless, no
Okay.
context, right? And
Mhm.
every single one of them said it slightly different, but they all nailed it, and they all cited press coverage, own
Mhm.
content, social content, partner content. And so I was
Mhm.
like, this is pretty cool. So I took a picture of all the different LLM results, and posted it on LinkedIn and said, this is what branding success looks like in 2025.
Nice.
Here's a term that we came up with. And it's like,
Yeah.
and I closed it out the post with something like, just do it. I was lifting some of the famous ones and then closed it with joyful headless. Like, this is how those two words to most people are like, what does that even mean? But those in
Right.
the space that know it, hear it, search it, of course, AI just nailed it and did the best job selling it than even we could. So that was kind of
Right.
a sly way of like bragging a little bit, but also teaching a lesson. It's like, this is what you want your brand to look like. You want AI to fully understand every nuance of your tagline and who you are. And, the results didn't mention any competitors. It was all
Yep.
about us. And I was like, bam, that's like 7 different AI systems. So that there is a way to do it. And I was proud of that one. Again, I probably got like 7 reactions, but it still served the purpose without me feeling icky
Yeah.
about it.
One
I
of
think
the
it's a
things
great example.
I took from Cassie, I forget her last name, was an end of month post. And I just literally say, this is what we've done, 3 or 4 company updates, like hired somebody or we get a new client or whatever. And then there's a shout out. Sometimes I bring in the team members by name, but also I do a shout out to the media outlets. And
Mm,
that way it's not just company focused, but I'm giving other people credit. I
Yeah.
will actually share a couple of posts I did recently on the screen here because for those who are wondering how to include successes, right? Um, one of the posts I did was actually to your point, Lindsay, like it had that passion behind it.
yes.
You know,
This is a great example.
my colleague Robert is leading this client for us. I'm gonna start crying. This guy like 5 daughters, but this girl was in a car accident. She almost died, and her dad held her neck while they loaded her on the ambulance. And then a few months later, she's out of the coma, learning how to talk, walk, look at colors. And he said, "I can't help you. This is her childhood hero who literally saved her life. Said, I can't help you. That's between you and God." So we wrote this piece for Father's Day. We were like, Robert put like 3 weeks into this piece. It was a grind, and we nailed it at Fox, and it got on the front page of Real Clear Politics. And so this thing got republished by, I don't know, 15 or 20 outlets. It did really, really well. It led to a follow-up interview with a local outlet. And this is the post I put, and it did really well. I didn't really have to do much for it because, to your point, Lindsay, it was very authentic. And I gave
Hmm.
everyone else credit for it. Becky was a consultant and, how the team came together. Similarly, this is one speaking of repurposing, Brandon, we reuse this one about every month. But I'm posting 7 days a week, so I don't think anybody notices. But
Yeah.
we lead with our success, but then I give the client all the credit. And then I get into the lesson of how to think through strategy. So I think those are 2 ways that you can use, your successes in order to generate credibility and relationship on LinkedIn.
Yeah. And I think now as I'm consulting and starting to build a business and see where this goes, it is something that I will probably do more of as I sort of get these sort of projects under my belt and have more to
Mhm.
show about it. But I think the way that you sort of laid it out, I didn't read those posts and think it was self-promotional. I
Right.
think you presented it in a way that actually people can learn something from and how to navigate, clients want coverage anytime. And so if you're
Right.
thinking about different ways to approach things, I think that both of those, it never struck me as self-promotional. And I also think you have which was similar, and Brandon, you're a little bit different because you have Storyblok and yourself, and they're sort of separate, but we're our business, right? I
Right.
mean,
Mhm.
you Proven Media Solutions, you're posting on the company's behalf, right?
Right.
And whereas if, you were working like my experience in-house, right? My company had their own page, and that's where I shared, if there was like a great piece of media coverage or a campaign
Mhm.
that we ran,
That's a
and
good
then I would
point.
share it from the company page from mine. And the engagement would probably be pretty low. It'd probably be people who are scrolling through and liking things. But I think because you're building your business and LinkedIn is your funnel, I think those are important. And I mean, it's just like doing a case study, right? If you had a website, when you have a website, a business website, right? One of the things you want is client testimonials, case
Yep.
studies. And
Hmm.
without that, which I don't have and I probably don't need, I would share a client testimonial. I would share a case study on LinkedIn and using
Right.
it sort of as like my website. And so I think there's the right time and the right place. And I think if you position it the way that you've done it, and I think it's a huge learning for me, and I certainly will use both of your examples and have seen them when I start to think about doing that on my own. I think those are really great. I think there are people out there that are very self-promotional and it
Sure.
never feels right. And I sort of sometimes see them and I'm thinking, oh man, that's just like, okay, that's their way of
Right.
building a network, and that's great. But yeah,
For most of
that's
us, it
not
doesn't work.
me. That's
It,
not authentic to me.
right.
And I don't, I haven't needed to do that, but I think the way that both of you have done it and um have been really powerful and meaningful. So
I to your point, I think Dustin, I think you mentioned this, but the weekly or monthly wrap up of like, here's what
Mm.
happened in the company. I actually like those posts more than I like the just isolated one-off hits,
yeah,
because
Sure.
agreed.
I've seen people do a really good job of that. Like I think Blair had done this like at the end of the week with a
Hmm.
picture of
Yes,
a
she did. Yes,
cocktail.
she did. Yes.
Yeah, and
Yep.
that was like a thing for a while, right? Like a picture of a
Yep.
cocktail, like it's Friday, we're
Yep.
done. Here's what went great. Here's what didn't go so great. Like if
Yep.
as long as you balance it of like what we learned this week, sprinkled in with some client wins, I think that weekly update is actually a cool content idea. It doesn't feel self-promotional to me. It feels like you're kind of in their board meeting, or not at that level, but in their company leadership
Yeah,
meeting of like, here's what happened and here's what didn't go great.
Well,
And you can
it's like
like,
a happy hour. We all got together virtually and we're celebrating together.
yeah,
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
that's a cool way to frame it. Is like, hey, it's Friday, it's 5 p.m. Let's revisit the week. I like that
yeah.
format. If I was going to do that, I'd probably do something similar. But your point there, Dustin, too, with the emotional story. I mean, I will always highlight something when it has some sort of an emotional, personal relationship.
Yep.
We had a piece in Business Insider about working for a European company versus a US company. And we interviewed a team member about the benefits of that. And a lot of it's personal, like as a mother, the flexibility, not
Oh,
having to be
sure.
so strict with US companies. Like that
Hmm.
was something I went and posted right away, not just because it was on Business Insider, but that was like the personal story of one of our team members sharing like the transformational way that working
Hmm.
with the European company helps you when you're used to working with US companies where you just burn out as the norm, and
Hmm.
there's no respect for your personal time and all that. So anytime I see an internal story that has a hint of that, I will definitely share that. But if it's, yeah, hey, we launched this new feature, I'm much more careful about how I personally post about that stuff.
Well, and the other thing though, too, Brennan, is most people aren't necessarily going to know how Storyblok did on the product launch, right? So you can have the after effect, like the LLM thing. But I think also too, if you're launching a campaign, you could say something like, and I'm making this up off the cuff, but really proud of a campaign we launched. Can't tell the details yet, but these are the 5 things that we did to get it off the ground. And that way
Mm,
you're sharing the principles, strategies, and tactics with people. So, you're announcing that the company did something,
Mm-hmm.
but you're also providing the value and sharing for free, your ideas and your concepts.
Yeah, no, tons of value in that. One of the things we're working on too is, I think this applies for all of us, is company wide enablement. So even if you're in a small agency or just you, it starts with you, but as the team grows, helping everyone understand how to navigate this and actually tell the story. We see massive results from our employees either being promotional, straight up promotional, like, hey, I built this product at the team and I'm happy about it. That gets a lot of engagement because people that are, let's say, product developers that follow that person, they actually will engage with that post because
right.
it's about what they built. Whereas if I posted
Right.
that, no one cares because I'm the comms guy. You just got to find
Right.
your lane. And I think, man, there's so many opportunities to get teams like of our size. You've got 200 and some people. If they're
Hmm.
all sharing their personal story about how their role in something happened, that's a great way
Hmm.
also to start building a personal brand. Like our whole team can do what we're talking about here, and
Yep.
before they know it, they actually have a personal brand just because they started talking about some wins. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's a delicate balance, but I appreciate how you both do it. I think it's the right attitude.
And by the way, Lindsay now has 31 engagements on her repost.
Wow.
Love my fans.
It's incredible.
Thank you.
Let's wrap up here. We've talked about authenticity and whatnot. Something that a lot of people, I think it's an interesting balance on authenticity versus vulnerability.
Mm,
Renee Lynn Froho's talked about this a lot, and Jeanette Carter's talked about this a lot. And some people are just out there, Perry, of course, and Becca Chambers and others, whether they're positive or negative, or they have a certain niche that they love to talk about. I'm very cautious. We talked about this last time. Actually, it was actually our wrap-up topic last time too. I'm very cautious because a lot of our business this year is public affairs. These are people who largely want to impact a Republican Congress and a Republican White House. So we have a lot of either centrist, center-right, conservative clients right now. But most PR, marketing, comms, consultancies are run by people who are not conservative. So 2 years ago, half of our business was B2C. We had a couple, some AI client. Like, I have to be very careful on how I talk about these components because I don't care about my personal politics, but how do I analyze something? Pre-election, I threw a few analyses of different sides and they did really well. January, February, I was getting slammed by both sides. I critiqued something that President Trump did. I got criticized for not being harsh enough on him, and then criticized for criticizing him. And when I praised something that his press office did, I got accused of supporting fascism. And so I've just completely backed away from that and relied heavily on those personal relationships. And so I've actually denied a little bit of authenticity, if you will, because the company's authenticity is we're a business that does PR services.
right.
So I've denied some of that. I also don't put my kids online.
Right.
My kids under the age of 7, I'm not gonna put them online. The one post of my kids on LinkedIn is the back of my daughter's head because I had done my first ponytail, and nobody cared because it's much cuter to look at a kid's face on the back of the kid's head, no matter how bad the ponytail is.
Yeah. Whew. Yeah. Well, so my personal brand, I guess because of your audience, like you do have to dabble in all these different. That's a tough thing. You won't ever see that on mine. Mine is straight down the line comms and tech, right? So
Right.
I don't share a lot personally on there. I keep it very focused. Like I tell personal stories based on work, but that's a very deliberate thing on my end. Like this is why it took me so long to even start this stuff, because it was just another thing that I didn't want. I didn't want the obligation and visibility into everything I'm doing, but I found a way to do it and keep it professional and not have to worry about playing both sides or anything like that, or any side. It's just,
Well, Brad,
here's what I'm doing.
I need to jump in here real quick, and I apologize for interrupting, but I want to share a screen because I'm looking at your page right now.
Okay.
There's a way that
Oh,
you're
no.
authentic.
He's got receipts. Oh man.
There's a way that you're
No.
authentic that you don't realize.
Yeah.
This shows your personality, this post.
Yeah.
Right? It's short.
Look at that. Look at those 3
picture.
likes. By the way, I thought that was a winner this morning and it wasn't. I'm shocked.
But, like, here's the thing, like this is personality here. There's nothing, there's a lot of different ways to present this opening sentence, for example. Or this is a great one. This one did really well. This one has 80 engagements. Like, this is great. So I think you actually do have an authentic brand and unique voice. It just doesn't involve personal details.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I do try that. I do try to be very real about it. But yeah, I don't mix a lot of external stuff. Even the news cycle, you won't see the news cycle in a lot of my posts. It's very rare that I post something that just happened. Even in tech, I kind of let it simmer for a while and then come back to it. So I'm not chasing trends and news and all that. It's just a deliberate thing on my part too. And also representing the company, I just keep it professional, but in my personality.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah, and I think I'm very similar. I've always been that way. I sort of was raised that politics are private. So I will actually, your salary and who you voted for are the two things that you should never talk about, and that's how I was raised. So, I think I sort of I live that way sort of in my real life too, not just on LinkedIn. So you probably won't ever see that. I think vulnerability and authenticity often sort of get mixed in together, but I think there's a way. I think especially when people post about the job search and how
Yeah, that's a
difficult it's
good point.
been, a lot of
Yeah,
vulnerable posts. I
good point.
think for better or worse, that is not something that I would personally be posting about, but I certainly will be my authentic self and support people in their posts
Mhm.
with that. And that's where I think my authenticity and these authentic relationships I've built, then I become my more vulnerable self with people in a sort of one-to-one, one to
Mm,
two, more direct relationship. But I don't really talk about personal things on this. I also hesitate to be critical of maybe people I've worked for in the past or who
yeah.
sort of didn't see
Yep.
around a corner with a communications issue. And maybe
Mhm.
we wanted to go one way, they wanted to go the other way, and that's the way we went, and so on
Mhm.
and so on. Um, I will never post about those types of things, and
Right.
so I try to remove that from my sort of story bank of things that I talk about. But again, I don't sort of conflate vulnerability and authenticity. And I think I'm still a very authentic person without sort of exposing the realer parts of my life on LinkedIn. My kids, my, political perspectives. Now there are things I will certainly, and that again, comments allow you to be a little bit more um quote unquote vulnerable because somebody else sort of posted about it. But
Sure.
I don't really, that's not really sort of the stories that I would or the posts I would be commenting on. I try to keep things, again, to Brandon's point, very comms focused and very um I don't know, not black and white, but just sort of direct and sort of keep it there. So a good question.
Mhm.
I know we've hit an hour, but if you don't mind hanging out for a couple more minutes, you hit up on something, Lindsay, that I hadn't thought about as I was mentally preparing for our conversation today. Because I haven't looked for, I mean, look for clients, but I haven't looked for
Mm, mm-hmm.
in a long time. I know a lot of people I know and don't know are and have been for some
Yeah.
time.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't tell you how many, at least a half a dozen people that I've seen post the open to work banner, and they've
Mm-hmm.
said, I'm embarrassed, or I was hoping not to
Mm-hmm.
post, or I feel a little ashamed.
Sure.
So let's talk about that a little bit here, because that could
Mm-hmm.
actually be something really valuable for people as a takeaway. And by the way, a quick side note, I will authentically get a light next time because the fact that we went from sun to clouds to thunderstorm has now shown the weakness of this non-tan gold skin you're all
We
experiencing.
were, well, it goes back to our conversation about media do's and don'ts. So we'll
Yeah,
we'll
oh
we'll
yes,
talk
Brandon and
about that
Oh
I,
later.
yeah,
not to make the
yeah.
joke,
We didn't get the
Lindsay
memo.
showed up in a solid color and Brandon and I showed up, looking like we're playing
Blowing up
checkers.
this camera.
Good lighting is number two on my list.
Oh,
So
and I had good lighting and then it broke.
Send them an
So,
invoice,
that's
Lindsay.
yeah,
well,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
well, dishwasher broke, the kid has strep, and a partridge in a pear tree.
I get it.
Sorry, the
Trust
light
me,
has
I
a
get
better
it.
priority.
I get
But
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, but realistically, I think one thing that would be very helpful for people looking for work,
Hmm.
talk about your successes like it's a resume. Just
Yeah.
say, if you, whether you're admitted you're looking for work or not,
Hmm.
the more that you're out there showcasing your expertise, not just, if you're looking at a news cycle, not just reacting to it, but maybe looking and saying, okay, this is the thing on that Southwest did. Okay, great. A reaction is fine, but show me what you would have done differently
Right.
for them, or show us how you think they went down that journey. Show how your brain and your strategic sense work that fit the kinds of roles you're looking for. Because LinkedIn is no longer, to the thing we said at the outset, it's no longer just a billboard where you just put your resume or post
Yeah.
basic things. You have to walk people through it, or it's just a resume, as opposed to a resume supplement.
Yeah. So this is probably a long conversation we could have about the
I
job
know.
search at
I
LinkedIn. And
know.
but I think what you're saying is important because this is what I have shared with a lot of people who are maybe newer to the journey or trying to figure out what's next or in their job search. The open to work, you sort of asked that question at the beginning, so I'll answer it.
Mhm.
I think it actually is very brave to put it on. it's there for a reason. It helps you, it helps recruiters find you. There's a way to do it so you don't have like the green banner. What I don't like about it is that it opens you up to scammers. And so
Mhm.
for me, when I
Oh.
was sort of in that process, I
Mhm.
I thought about it, but I don't want to be dealing with people texting me, fake recruiters texting me, or clogging up my DMs. So
Mhm.
there's that. But then the flip side is LinkedIn is an amazing place where you can find people who have experienced similar challenges in this job search,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
you can build sort of communities, smaller communities. I have a couple people who I talk to on the regular, and we share stories and we encourage encourage each other. We share jobs, even they're the same jobs that we're all applying for.
Right.
It's not a zero sum game. So y- use LinkedIn for that, right? Use that to connect with somebody who's on the West Coast who has had a similar job path, right? And there's so many
Mhm.
different places to do that. And I think LinkedIn, like I said, LinkedIn, the platform is there and it's how you use it. But from a job search perspective, it's a critical tool. And also I think I mentioned at the beginning, I've gotten really positive feedback for
Mhm.
how I'm presenting myself from executive recruiters and people I talk to who have said that I've well positioned myself to, when I find the right job or the right client, right? Because now I'm sort of in that mode.
Mhm.
To sort of for them to see who I am and what I bring to the table. So I think that from a job search perspective, it's critical. There are frustrating parts about it, no doubt, but it's a critical piece of your personal brand, and that's what people are looking for.
I think she says it best. That sounds like some closing words to me. She speaks with authority because she knows that space.
How we
But
want to end on a job search.
no, I will second your point, Dustin and Lindsay, both on the posts are incredible. I it's unbelievable what people are going through, and the scammers. You're so right, Lindsay.
Mm,
That's most of what I see is people they're just so let down by the scams that are running wild out there. So
yes.
that's a whole nother topic. But
Yeah.
yeah, not fair at all.
I see the other scams. I see the do you want to franchise your business scams?
Oh,
Oh,
I get those too.
I
Or
get those
or
too.
or the one I just got actually, I was just checking, I have to keep an eye on LinkedIn to see if anybody comments, which again, to the point here is that Lindsay, your one post has gotten 31 engagements. My post yesterday, my several comments, my comments during the show, I think I have about half of what you have. But I did get an email from somebody saying, a VM saying, I help women succeed. Would you like to talk with me about helping you succeed? So clearly, I need to do a better job of being authentic in my profile. That happened about
Oh
10 minutes ago.
man.
Love it.
So we'll end with a little humor. Folks, this was a lot of fun. I really appreciate it. And yeah, good luck this summer. And Brandon, make sure you post about the AI panel you're doing.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
I'll
we
do
can't
it.
wait to see that.
I'll do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great to meet with you both again. Awesome.
Yeah, thanks for
All
having us. No boxing gloves this time.
Yeah.
right. Take care.
See you
Bye.
both.